Trademark dilution is the weakening of the ability of a famous mark to identify and distinguish goods and services regardless of competition or confusion in the marketplace. Dilution is said to protect the goodwill associated with a mark. In order to make a claim for trademark dilution, the mark has to be a famous mark. In other words, it has to be widely known to the U.S. consuming public. The mark has to be a household name. Dilution can occur in two ways: dilution by blurring and dilution by tarnishment. Dilution by blurring occurs when the famous mark or virtually identical mark is used in a non-competing industry. And this use is said to detract from the ability of the consuming public to use that mark to identify the famous mark's goods and services. An example of this would be McDonald's. We know that McDonald's is associated with hamburgers and fast food restaurants. If someone were to open McDonald's Hotel, McDonald's might argue that the use of their mark on this hotel is detracting from the consuming public's ability to identify their mark with their goods and services. So they may be able to stop someone from using that mark even though it's a completely different industry and there's no likelihood of confusion that McDonald's is running a hotel. The second way that dilution can occur is called dilution by tarnishment, and that occurs when the famous mark or a virtually identical mark, or maybe a play on that mark, is used in connection with an unpopular idea or industry, or maybe with inferior goods. An example of this would be the Walt Disney Company. We know that Walt Disney is associated with certain movies and with running theme parks and resorts. If someone were to open Disney's Gentlemen's Club, Walt Disney might have a problem with that because they might think that that industry is detracting from the goodwill of their famous mark. It's an industry that they probably do not want to be associated with, even though no one would be confused that the same Walt Disney that's running hotels and theme parks is running a gentleman's club. So the reason you need to be concerned about trademark dilution is that even if you're in a non-competing industry from a famous mark, you need to be aware that regardless of likelihood of confusion, a famous mark holder can still stop you from using that mark. So before you put a lot of time and energy into branding and a trademark, you need to check with an attorney to make sure that you're not going to run into a potential trademark dilution claim with a famous mark.